The morning started like any other Tuesday. People rushed to work, children walked to school, and coffee shops opened their doors to sleepy customers. Then the sky changed. 3 massive ships appeared above Earth without warning. They were bigger than any city, floating silently in the blue sky like dark metal clouds. Within minutes, every television, radio, and phone on the planet received the same message. People of Earth. The voice spoke in perfect English, then repeated in every language known to humanity. We are the Galactic Tribunal. We have watched your world for many years. You have been judged. President Lisa Carter sat in the White House Situation Room, staring at screens showing the alien ships. Her advisors talked rapidly around her, but their words sounded distant. She watched as millions of people across the world stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. The alien voice continued. Your species shows great violence. You fight wars. You destroy your planet. You kill your own kind. We must decide if you can exist with other worlds, or if you must stay alone on Earth forever. General Robert Hayes stepped closer to the president. Ma'am, our satellites can't get close to those ships. They have some kind of energy field around them. Our weapons can't reach them either. Lisa nodded but kept listening to the message. The alien voice was calm, like a teacher explaining a simple problem to children. We give you 72 hours to choose one person. This person will come to our ship and speak for all humans. They will tell us why your species should join the galaxy. If we do not like the answer, Earth will be alone forever. The message ended. The ship stayed in the sky, dark and silent. For the next 24 hours, the world went crazy. Some people panicked and ran to stores to buy food and water. Others prayed in churches, mosques, and temples. Scientists tried to contact the ships but got no answer. Military leaders suggested attacks that everyone knew would fail. World leaders held emergency meetings. Some wanted to send their best diplomat. Others suggested a famous scientist or a great writer. The debate went on for hours while the alien ships waited. Lisa Carter listened to all the suggestions. She heard about professors who spoke 10 languages, ambassadors who had solved international problems, and writers who could make anyone cry with their words. But she kept thinking about something else. What do we know about these aliens? She asked her science advisor, Dr. Kevin Clark. Not much, ma'am. They call themselves the Galactic Tribunal. They seem to judge other species. They've been watching US for years, which means they have technology we can't understand. And they're worried about our violence. Yes, ma'am. They mentioned wars, destruction, killing. They see us as dangerous. Lisa walked to the window and looked out at the city. People were going about their lives, but she could see the fear in how they moved. Parents held their children closer. Police officers watched the sky more often than the streets. General Hayes, she said suddenly. Tell me about Gunnery Sergeant Jake Murphy. The general looked confused. Ma'am, which Jake Murphy? The one who just came back from Africa. The one who led that mission to deliver medicine to the refugee camp. General Hayes pulled out a tablet and searched through files. Here he is. Gunnery Sergeant Jake Murphy, age 34, from Columbus, Ohio. Decorated Marine, 3 tours overseas. Recently returned from a peacekeeping mission in Somalia. Tell me about Somalia. His unit was delivering medical supplies to a camp with 10,000 refugees. They came under attack from local militia. Murphy's team could have left the supplies and retreated safely. Instead, they fought through enemy lines to make sure the medicine reached the camp, especially the vaccines for the children. Lisa's advisors looked at each other with worry. They could see where this was going. Ma'am, said Secretary of State Patricia Williams, surely you're not thinking of sending a soldier to speak for humanity. We need a diplomat, someone who understands international relations. Do we? Lisa asked. These aliens think we're too violent. They've probably never seen real violence, or they wouldn't have given us 3 days to choose. They would have just destroyed us." She turned back to the window. "They want to understand why humans are worth saving. Maybe we should show them someone who knows both sides of humanity. Someone who has seen the worst we can do and still chooses to protect others." The room fell silent except for the sound of papers rustling and phones buzzing with updates from around the world. "Get me Sergeant Murphy," Lisa said finally. "I want to talk to him." 2 hours later, Jake Murphy stood in the White House wearing his dress uniform. He was a simple man with steady eyes and calloused hands. He had been painting his daughter Emma's bedroom when the call came. He still smelled faintly of blue paint. "Sergeant Murphy," the president said, "I'm going to ask you to do something that sounds impossible." Jake stood straight. "Yes, ma'am. I want you to represent humanity to the aliens. I want you to go to their ship and convince them that we deserve to exist among the stars." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Through the window, they could both see one of the alien ships floating in the distance. "Ma'am, I'm not good with fancy words. I'm just a Marine. There are people much smarter than me who could do this better." "Maybe," Lisa said. "But you're someone who understands what it means to make hard choices. You know what humans are capable of, both good and bad. If these aliens want to judge us, they should meet someone who lives with those judgments every day." Jake thought about his daughter waiting at home, about the refugees in Somalia, about the young Marines under his command who trusted him to make the right decisions. "What do you need me to do, ma'am?" The president smiled for the first time in 2 days. "Just be yourself, Sergeant. Show them what humanity really looks like." Outside, the alien ships continued their silent watch, waiting for Earth's answer. Jake Murphy had been in scary situations before, but nothing like this. He stood on a platform that seemed to be made of light itself, rising slowly toward the alien ship. The Earth got smaller below him until it looked like a blue marble against the black of space. The ship was bigger than anything he had ever imagined. It stretched out like a metal city, with strange lights moving along its surface. As the platform carried him inside, Jake felt like an ant entering a cathedral. The walls around him were smooth and silver, and they seemed to glow with their own light. The air smelled different too, like ozone after a thunderstorm. Jake kept his back straight and his eyes forward, the way he had been taught in basic training 20 years ago. A voice spoke in his head, not through his ears. "Welcome, human. Follow the blue lights." Jake looked down and saw a line of soft blue lights on the floor. He followed them through corridors that were tall enough for giants. Sometimes he passed windows that showed the stars outside, but mostly he walked through halls that hummed with energy he could not understand. The blue lights led him to a massive room that took his breath away. It was like being inside a hollow mountain. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it, and curved walls stretched out in all directions. In the center was a circle of raised platforms, each one holding a different type of alien. Jake walked to the center of the circle, where a simple human chair waited for him. It looked tiny compared to everything else in the room, but it was the only familiar thing he could see. "Sit," the voice said in his head. Jake sat down and looked around at the beings surrounding him. They were nothing like the aliens in movies. One looked like it was made of living crystal, tall and thin, with light moving through its body like slow lightning. Another was covered in dark chitin like a giant insect, with 4 arms and eyes that reflected the room's light. To his left floated something that looked like colored smoke in the shape of a person. It moved and shifted constantly, never quite solid. Across from him sat a creature that looked like a small mountain, made of gray stone with gems for eyes. The strangest one was covered in metal and wires, with parts of its body that glowed and clicked. It looked like a robot, but Jake could see organic parts underneath the machinery. "I am Ambassador Zexhai of the Veltar," said the crystal being. Its voice was like music, with notes that seemed to ring in Jake's bones. "We speak for the Galactic Tribunal. You are the one called Jake Murphy. Yes, sir, Jake said. I mean, yes, Ambassador. We have studied your species for 47 of your years, Zexai continued. We have watched, we have recorded. We have learned of your nature. The insect creature leaned forward. I am Cluster Prime Vex of the Kresh. Your species troubles us greatly, human Jake Murphy. The smoky being spoke next, its voice like wind through leaves. I am Yethara of the Ethereals. We have seen what your kind does to itself and to your world. The stone creature's voice was deep and slow, like rocks grinding together. I am Rockward of the Gorvani. We have witnessed your violence. Finally, the mechanical being spoke in a voice that was perfectly human, but somehow wrong. I am Processing. Unit 7 of the Nexari. We have calculated your threat level. Jake nodded to each of them. Pleased to meet you all. Ambassador Zexai raised one crystal hand, and the air above the circle filled with images. Jake watched his own planet appear, spinning slowly in the light. Then the images changed, showing scenes from Earth's history. Observe, Zexai said. Your species in the year you call 1914. Millions of your people die in what you call the Great War. Jake watched soldiers in muddy trenches, artillery exploding, bodies lying in no man's land. The images were more real than any movie, as if he was standing right there. Yet you learned nothing, Cluster Prime Vex clicked. 25 years later, you begin an even greater war. More images appeared. Tanks rolling across fields, cities burning, ships sinking in dark water. Jake saw concentration camps, bombing raids, and battles that went on for years. You created weapons that could destroy your entire world, Rockward rumbled. You tested them on your own people. Images of mushroom clouds appeared, followed by radiation sickness, burned cities, and children with strange diseases. You poison your own planet, Yethara whispered. You cut down forests, you pollute rivers, you kill creatures that have lived for millions of years. Jake watched factories pumping black smoke into the sky, oil spills covering beaches, and endless piles of garbage. He saw the last of species disappearing, their habitats destroyed by human expansion. You fight each other over resources, over beliefs, over territory, Processing Unit 7 stated. Our calculations show 14,000 wars in your recorded history. You have never achieved planetary peace, the images continued. Jake saw gang violence in cities, terrorism, ethnic cleansing, and civil wars. He watched humans hurting other humans in ways that made him sick to his stomach. Compare this to our species, Zexai said. New images appeared. The Veltar lived in crystal cities that grew from the ground like flowers. They moved in harmony, their lights pulsing in patterns that looked like living music. There was no violence, no war, no destruction. Kresh showed hive cities where thousands of insect beings worked together like parts of a single organism. They built amazing structures and art, but never fought each other. The ethereals lived in floating cities among the clouds of gas giant planets. They created beauty that made Jake's chest ache, but they had no concept of individual violence. Gorvani showed cities carved into living mountains, where the stone beings lived for thousands of years in perfect peace with their world. The Nexari had transformed their entire planet into a perfect machine, where every being was connected to every other, and conflict was simply processed away. We have brought peace to 15 star systems, Zexai said. We have ended wars, stopped suffering, and created harmony among dozens of species. But we have never encountered a species like yours. The images of Earth's violence returned, filling the air around Jake. He felt small and ashamed, seeing his species through these alien eyes. Your people create art and music while they plan wars, Cluster Prime Vex observed. They build hospitals and schools while they manufacture weapons. They speak of love while they practice hatred. This is why we must decide, Yathara said softly. Can a species so divided, so violent, so chaotic ever be trusted among the stars? Or must you remain alone on your world, unable to harm others? Jake sat in his small chair, surrounded by images of humanity's worst moments. He thought about his daughter Emma, about the refugees in Somalia, about the young Marines who looked up to him for answers. Jake Murphy of Earth, Ambassador HFY said. You have heard our evidence. How do you answer for your species? Why should we allow humans to join the galaxy when you have shown only violence and destruction? The room fell silent. 5 alien species waited for his answer. Behind them, the images of war and death continued to play in the air. Jake took a seek. Deep breath and stood up. Well, he said, I guess I should start by telling you what I was doing last Tuesday. Jake looked around at the 5 alien beings staring down at him. The images of war and destruction still floated in the air above their heads. He could feel their judgment pressing down on him like a heavy weight. Last Tuesday, Jake said slowly, I was painting my daughter's bedroom. She's 8 years old, and she wanted it to be blue like the ocean. I was almost finished when my phone rang. The aliens remained silent, but Jake could sense their confusion. This was not how they expected him to begin. The call was from my commanding officer. There was a situation in Somalia. A refugee camp with 10,000 people, mostly women and children. They were sick and dying, and they needed medicine. But the local warlords didn't want us there. Jake started walking slowly around his chair as he talked. It helped him think, and it felt better than just sitting still. My team's job was simple. Get the medical supplies to the camp. We had trucks full of antibiotics, vaccines, and food. Should have been easy, right? Processing Unit 7 clicked softly. We are aware of this mission. Our records show it was successful. Yeah, it was successful, Jake said. But not the way Command planned it. He stopped walking and looked directly at Ambassador HFY. See, the warlords set up roadblocks. They had rocket launchers, machine guns, and about 50 fighters. They told us to leave the supplies and go home. Said they would distribute everything fairly. But you did not trust them, Cluster Prime Vex observed, would you? Jake asked. These were the same people who had been stealing food aid for months. The same ones who recruited child soldiers and sold girls as slaves. You think they cared about sick kids in a refugee camp? The smoky form of Yathara shifted. So you chose violence. I chose to do my job, Jake said firmly, but not the way you think. He pulled out his phone and showed them a picture. It was blurry, taken quickly, but it showed him kneeling next to a small African girl who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. This is Amara. When we got to the camp, she was dying from malaria. Her temperature was so high she was having seizures. Her mother was crying because she couldn't help her own child. Jake swiped to another picture. This is Dr. Rachel Kim. She's a Navy medic who volunteered for the mission. She could have stayed safe at the base, but she came with us because she knew people would die without her help. The aliens leaned forward to see the small screen. Dr. Kim was treating patients in a tent that looked like it might fall down at any moment. When the warlords started shooting at us, Dr. Kim was in the middle of surgery on a 10-year-old boy. Piece of metal in his stomach from an old landmine. She could have stopped and run for cover. But she did not, Rockwood rumbled. No, she didn't. And neither did Corporal Danny Martinez. He stood guard at the tent while bullets flew over his head. Private Lisa Johnson kept handing Dr. Kim medical supplies while mortar exploded outside. Jake put his phone away and looked at each alien. In turn, you want to know about human violence? You're right. We're violent. I killed 3 people that day. Shot them dead to protect a doctor and her patients. The room was very quiet. Even the humming of the ship's systems seemed to fade. But here's what your recordings probably didn't show you, Jake continued. After the fighting stopped, those same Marines who had been shooting at the warlords spent the next 6 hours helping Dr. Kim treat wounded people, including wounded enemy fighters. Yathara's smoky form rippled. You treated those who tried to kill you? Danny Martinez carried a wounded militiaman to the medical tent on his back. The same guy had been shooting at him an hour earlier. When I asked Danny why, you know what he said? Jake smiled slightly at the memory. He said, "Sarge, he's just a kid who got talked into carrying a gun. Maybe if someone shows him kindness instead of hate, he'll make better choices next time." This is confusing. Cluster Prime Vex clicked rapidly. Your species fights and heals simultaneously. We do what needs to be done, Jake said. Sometimes that means fighting. Sometimes it means healing. Sometimes it means both. He walked back to his chair, but didn't sit down. You showed me pictures of our wars. Fair enough. But let me tell you about those wars from a different angle. Jake looked up at the images still floating above them. World War II, yeah, it was terrible. Millions died. Cities burned. But do you know why Americans got involved? Resource competition, Processing Unit 7 stated. Territorial expansion. Wrong, Jake said flatly. We got involved because we couldn't stand by and watch innocent people get murdered. We had something called the Holocaust happening. People being killed just for being different. New images appeared in Jake's mind, but he didn't need the aliens to show them. He had seen the museums, read the books, heard the stories from old veterans. My grandfather fought in that war. He was 19 years old when he landed on a beach in France. You know what he told me before he died? He said he wasn't fighting for his country or for glory. He was fighting so that kids like me would grow up in a world where people couldn't be murdered for their religion or race. Yet your species continues to have such conflicts, Ambassador Zex-High observed. Some do, Jake admitted. But others fight against it. Every time genocide starts somewhere in the world, humans from other countries volunteer to stop it. Doctors, teachers, soldiers, civilians. They leave their safe homes and risk their lives for strangers. He pulled out his phone again and showed them another picture. This one was of his Marine unit in Afghanistan, but they weren't holding weapons. They were building a school. This is my team in Afghanistan. We spent 6 months fighting Taliban fighters who were trying to stop girls from going to school. Then we spent the next 6 months helping to build a new school with better walls and safer classrooms. The same individuals who fought also built? Rockwood asked, sounding genuinely puzzled. Same people, same hands, Jake confirmed. Corporal Martinez, the one who carried the wounded enemy fighter. He's also a trained carpenter. He worked 16-hour days building desks for those kids. Jake sat down in his chair and leaned forward. You see humans as violent and chaotic. Maybe we are. But we're also the species that created the Red Cross to help wounded soldiers, even enemy soldiers. We're the ones who created Doctors Without Borders, who go into war zones to heal people. These seem like contradictions, Yathara whispered. They're not contradictions, Jake said firmly. They're choices. Every day, every human has to choose between helping or hurting, between building or destroying, between hope and fear. He stood up again and looked directly at each alien. You want to judge us for our capacity for violence? Fine, but judge US for our capacity for love too. Judge us for running into burning buildings to save strangers. Judge us for sharing food with hungry people, even when we don't have enough for ourselves. Your species puzzles us greatly, Ambassador Zex-High admitted. Jake smiled. We puzzle ourselves too. That's part of being human. We don't always know the right thing to do, but we try our best with what we have. He thought about little Amara, who had recovered from malaria and given him a drawing before he left Somalia. He thought about his daughter Emma, who wanted to be a doctor so she could help sick animals. He thought about all the humans right now, who were making the choice to help instead of hurt. "You say we're too dangerous for the galaxy," Jake said. Quietly, "Maybe you're right. But maybe the galaxy needs some danger. Maybe it needs people who are willing to fight when fighting is the only way to protect the innocent." The alien tribunal sat in silence, processing what they had heard. Above them, the images of human war and destruction continued to play, but somehow they looked different now. "Tell us more," Ambassador Zexai said finally. Jake nodded. "I've got plenty more stories, some good, some bad, all true. Which ones do you want to hear?" Jake could see that his stories were making the aliens uncomfortable. They kept shifting on their platforms, and their lights flickered in patterns he didn't understand. But he wasn't done yet. "Can I ask you folks a question?" Jake said, walking around his chair again. "You may speak," Ambassador Zexai replied, though the crystal being sounded uncertain. "What's the worst thing your species has ever done?" The question hung in the air like smoke. The aliens looked at each other, their various forms of communication, creating a buzz of activity around the circle. "I do not understand the question," Cluster Prime Vex clicked. "Sure you do," Jake said. "Every species makes mistakes. Every group of people has moments they're not proud of. What's yours?" "The Veltar do not make mistakes," Ambassador Zexai said stiffly. "We evolved beyond such primitive behavior." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Really? You've never had to make a choice between two bad options? Never had to decide who lives and who dies? Never had to choose between saving one person or saving 10? Such situations do not arise in civilized society," Processing Unit 7 stated. "Don't they?" Jake asked. He was starting to get a clearer picture of these aliens, and he didn't like what he was seeing. "Let me try a different question. Have any of your species ever faced extinction?" The silence stretched on for a long time. "The ethereals once faced a cosmic storm that threatened our gas giant homes," Yathara finally whispered. "But we simply moved to other worlds." "The Gorvani have faced asteroid impacts," Rockwood admitted. "But our stone bodies survived such events easily." "What about disease?" Jake asked. "Famine? Natural disasters that you couldn't just move away from or survive?" "The Kresh Collective shares all resources equally," Cluster Prime Vex said. "Individual suffering is impossible. The Nexari eliminated biological weaknesses through technological integration," Processing Unit 7 added. "The Veltar achieved harmony with our environment millions of years ago," Ambassador Zexai finished. Jake nodded slowly. "So you've all found ways to avoid the hard choices. That's smart, I guess. But what happens when you can't avoid them?" "Such situations are theoretical," Ambassador Zexai said. "No, they're not," Jake replied firmly. "Let me give you a real situation. You're a doctor, and you have medicine for one person, but two people are dying. Both will die without the medicine. You can't get more medicine in time. Who do you save?" The aliens were quiet for a long moment. "The logical choice would be to save the individual with the highest probability of survival," Processing Unit 7 said finally. "What if they both have the same chance?" Jake pressed. "Then you would save the one who contributes most to society," Cluster Prime Vex suggested. "And if they're both equally valuable to society?" "This is a pointless exercise," Ambassador Zexai said with growing irritation. "Such precise scenarios do not occur in reality." Jake laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You really don't get it, do you? These aren't theoretical problems. This is Tuesday afternoon in any hospital on Earth." He pulled out his phone again and showed them a picture of Dr. Kim from Somalia. She had to make that exact choice. Two kids both dying, only enough medicine for one. You know what she did? The aliens waited. She gave half the medicine to each. KID, not enough to save either one according to the textbooks. But she couldn't choose between them. So she tried to save both, knowing she might lose both. That was illogical, Processing Unit 7 observed. Maybe, but both kids lived. Turned out half the dose was enough when combined with some other treatments, she improvised. Jake put his phone away and looked around the circle. You want to know the difference between humans and you? We have to make impossible choices every day, and we live with the consequences. Your species' chaotic nature is precisely why you are dangerous, Ambassador HFY said. Our chaotic nature is why we're useful, Jake shot back. Let me ask you something else. What would you do if you met a species that couldn't be reasoned with? One that didn't want to negotiate or find peaceful solutions? All intelligent species can be reasoned with, Yathara said softly. Really? What if they're not intelligent by your standards? What if they're just smart enough to build weapons but too aggressive to want peace? We would contain them, Rockwood said. What if they were stronger than you? What if your containment didn't work? The aliens exchanged more of their complex communications. Jake could see they were struggling with the concepts he was presenting. We have never encountered such a species, Ambassador HFY admitted. Lucky you, Jake said. But what if you did? What if tomorrow a species showed up that wanted to destroy everything you've built? Not because they hate you, but because destruction is just their nature? We would attempt diplomatic contact, Cluster Prime Vex said, and when that failed, we would try to understand their motivations, and when you couldn't, we would seek a peaceful solution, Jake sighed. You're not getting it. I'm talking about a species that doesn't want peace. That can't be negotiated with. That sees your peaceful civilizations as weakness to be exploited. Such species do not exist, Processing Unit 7 stated. How do you know? Jake asked. You've been the biggest, strongest kids on the galactic playground for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to face a real threat. He walked over to the edge of the circle and looked out at the stars visible through the ship's transparent walls. Every human alive today exists because our ancestors faced exactly those kinds of threats. Species that couldn't be reasoned with. Natural disasters that couldn't be negotiated with. Plagues that didn't care about diplomacy. Jake turned back to face the aliens. We survived because we learned to make hard choices. Because we learned to fight when fighting was the only option. Because we learned to sacrifice for others. Your warlike nature is exactly what concerns us, Ambassador HFY said. Our warlike nature is what's kept us alive, Jake replied. And maybe that's what the galaxy needs. Maybe you need some people who know how to fight, just in case. The galaxy is at peace, Yathara whispered. The galaxy is at peace because you've been lucky, Jake said. But luck doesn't last forever. He sat back down in his chair and looked at each alien in turn. You judge us for being violent. But you've never faced a situation where violence was the only answer. You judge us for being chaotic. But you've never had to adapt to survive. What are you suggesting? Rockwood asked. I'm suggesting that maybe you need us more than we need you, Jake said quietly. Maybe our chaos and violence and impossible choices are exactly what your perfect peaceful galaxy has been missing. The room fell silent again. The aliens seemed to be processing this idea, and Jake could see they didn't like it. You claim your species would protect others, Ambassador HFY said finally. We already do, Jake replied. We protect each other. We protect those who can't protect themselves. We've been doing it for thousands of years. And if we allowed you to join the galactic community, Jake smiled, then we'd protect you too. Even if you didn't want us to. Even if you thought we were too dangerous. That's what we do. The aliens looked at each other with their various forms of communication, flashing and clicking. Jake could tell they were arguing among themselves. We must consider what you have said, Ambassador HFY said finally. Take your time, Jake said. I'm not going anywhere. But as he spoke, alarms began to sound throughout the massive ship. Red lights flashed, and the alien's calm demeanor suddenly changed to something Jake recognized from his years in the military. Fear. What's happening? Jake asked. Ambassador Zexhi's crystal form was flickering rapidly. Unknown vessels have entered the system. They do not respond to our communications. Jake stood up. How many? Dozens. They appear to be hostile. Through the transparent walls, Jake could see new lights in the distance. Ships that looked nothing like the elegant tribunal vessel. These were dark, angular, and they moved with purpose. Well, Jake said, checking his watch, looks like you're about to find out if the galaxy really needs someone who knows how to fight. The ship shook. Jake felt it in his bones, a deep vibration that meant something very large had just hit them. Around the circle, the alien tribunal members were making sounds he had never heard before. Fear sounds. Report, Ambassador Zexhi called out, and Jake could hear the panic in the crystal being's musical voice. A new voice spoke from the walls of the ship. Ambassador, the attacking vessels are unlike anything in our databases. They appear to be constructed from living metal. Their weapons are causing significant damage to our shields. Jake looked through the transparent walls and saw flashes of light in the darkness. Some were the familiar blue-white of the tribunal's energy weapons. Others were a sick yellow-green color that hurt to look at. How many ships? Rockwood asked, his stone voice sounding smaller than before. 47 vessels detected. They are not responding to any communication attempts. Their attack pattern suggests they intend to destroy all life in this system. Cluster Prime Vex's chittering became rapid and high-pitched. The collective consciousness cannot process this. How can beings exist only to destroy? Perhaps we should withdraw, Yethara whispered, her smoky form becoming thinner. We could return when these creatures have moved on. Jake watched the alien tribunal fall apart before his eyes. These beings who had judged humanity for its violence were completely helpless when faced with real violence themselves. Can your weapons stop them? Jake asked. Our defensive systems are designed for peaceful purposes. Processing Unit 7 replied, its voice losing its perfect human tone and becoming mechanical. We have no experience with warfare. The ship shook again, harder this time. Through the walls, Jake could see one of the attacking ships. It looked like a nightmare made of black metal and sharp edges. As he watched, it fired something that looked like liquid fire at a smaller tribunal vessel. The smaller ship simply disappeared. Oh hell, Jake muttered. He had seen enough battles to know when one side was completely outmatched. We must contact our homeworlds, Ambassador Zexhi said desperately. Request immediate assistance. How long would that take? Jake asked. Several days for the message to reach them. Weeks for help to arrive. You don't have weeks, Jake said flatly. You've got maybe an hour before those ships tear through your defenses and start on Earth. The aliens looked at him with what he was beginning to recognize as desperation. These beings who had lived for millions of years in perfect peace had no idea how to deal with an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with. What do you suggest? Ambassador Zexhi asked quietly. Jake almost laughed. You're asking me, the violent, chaotic human? The one you were about to quarantine to his own planet? You have experience with conflict, Yethara admitted. Jake pulled out his phone and hit a speed dial number. He hoped the tribunal's communication systems could reach Earth from here. General Hayes, it's Jake Murphy. Yeah, I'm on the alien ship. Listen, we've got a situation up here. He explained quickly what was happening while the aliens listened. Another explosion rocked the ship, and the lights flickered. I need you to contact every military on Earth. Tell them we've got hostiles in the system, and the aliens need our help. Can you patch me through to Admiral Susan Parker? She's running the Space Defense Coordination. The call transferred, and Jake found himself talking to the commander of Earth's small but experienced Space Force. Admiral, I need everything you've got up here. These aliens have better technology but no idea how to use it in a fight. On our way, Sergeant. We've got 12 fighters and 2 destroyers that can reach you. Not much against 47 enemy ships. It's not about numbers, Jake said. It's about knowing how to fight. He ended the call and looked around at the alien tribunal. My people are coming. But I need you to do something you've probably never done before. What? Ambassador HFY asked. Follow orders from a species you consider primitive. The ship shook again, and Jake could hear the sound of metal tearing somewhere in the distance. We have no choice, Rockwood said heavily. No, you don't, Jake agreed. Now, can you patch me into your ship's communication system? I need to talk to your crews. Within minutes, Jake was speaking to alien crews throughout the tribunal fleet. Most of them had never heard a human voice before, but they listened as he explained basic combat tactics. Don't fly in straight lines. Don't group your ships together. When they fire at you, don't try to absorb the hit with your shields. Move. Make them waste their shots. The first Earth ships arrived as Jake was explaining the concept of flanking maneuvers to a group of confused Kresh pilots. He watched through the transparent walls as 12 small human fighters dove into the battle zone. They were tiny compared to the alien ships, but they moved like living things. Spinning, diving, appearing from unexpected angles to fire at the dark enemy vessels. See that? Jake pointed to where an Earth fighter had just crippled an enemy ship twice its size. That pilot doesn't have better weapons or stronger shields, but she knows how to fight. How? Processing Unit 7 asked. Because she's been doing it her whole life. Every human has. We fight with our brothers and sisters as children. We compete. In sports, we argue about ideas. We struggle against nature, against disease, against each other. Fighting is in our bones. Admiral Parker's voice came through Jake's phone. Sergeant Murphy, we're taking heavy casualties down here. These enemy ships are tough. I know, Admiral. But you're not trying to win. You're trying to teach. Teach what? The aliens how to fight back. Jake turned to the tribunal members. Your crews are starting to learn. But they need to see you making hard choices. They need to see their leaders willing to sacrifice to protect others. Ambassador HFY's crystal form flickered. We do not understand. Then learn fast, Jake said as another explosion shook the ship. Because in about 10 minutes, those things are going to break through your defenses and start killing everything in this system. What would you do? Yeth-Ara asked quietly. Jake looked out at the battle raging around them. Earth's small fleet was holding its own, but barely. The alien crews were getting better, but they were still too cautious, too afraid of making mistakes. I'd take this ship, ram it into the biggest enemy vessel I could find, and hope the explosion gave everyone else a chance to escape. The alien stared at him in shock. You would sacrifice yourself? Cluster Prime Vex asked. If that's what it took to save others? Yeah, but you would die. Maybe, or maybe I'd find a way to survive. But that's not the point. The point is being willing to risk everything for the people counting on you. Jake walked to the center of the circle. That's what you don't understand about humans. We don't fight because we like violence. We fight because there are things worth fighting for, people worth protecting, ideas worth dying for. Even for strangers, Rockwood asked. Especially for strangers. That's what makes us human. The battle continued to rage outside, but something was changing. The alien crews were getting more aggressive, taking risks they had never taken before. Earth's pilots were coordinating with alien ships, sharing targeting data, and covering each other's retreats. Your people fight beside ours, Ambassador HFY observed. Of course they do. That's what we do. Even though we were prepared to. Exile your species? Jake shrugged. You needed help. We help people who need help. Even people who don't like us very much. An hour later, the last of the enemy ships was destroyed. The cost had been high: 6 Earth fighters lost, 2 alien vessels destroyed, and dozens of casualties on both sides. But they had won. Jake stood in the tribunal chamber, looking out at the debris field that had once been a hostile fleet. His phone rang. "Daddy?" It was Emma's voice, small and scared. "Hey, sweetheart, I'm okay. Are the bad aliens gone?" Jake looked around at the tribunal members, who were slowly realizing that their perfect, peaceful galaxy had just been saved by the violent, chaotic species they had been ready to quarantine. "Yeah, baby. The bad aliens are gone. And the good aliens are going to be just fine." Ambassador HFY approached him as he ended the call. "Jake Murphy of Earth." "Yes, Ambassador?" "The Galactic Tribunal has reached its verdict." Jake waited. "We formally invite humanity to join the galactic community. Not as junior members, but as protectors." "What does that mean?" "It means we need teachers. We need to learn what you know about making hard choices, about fighting when fighting is necessary, about sacrificing for others." Jake smiled. "Well, I guess I can help with that, but I want to go home first. I promised my daughter I'd finish painting her room." "Ambassador." HFY's crystal form pulsed with something that might have been laughter. "Of course. Take all the time you need. The galaxy has waited this long to learn about courage. It can wait a little longer." Jake looked out at the stars, thinking about Emma waiting at home and all the humans who had just proven they belonged among those stars. "Actually," he said, "I think we can start right now. The first lesson is simple. When good people are in trouble, you help them. No matter who they are, no matter what they've done to you before." "And the second lesson?" "Yethara," asked. Jake grinned. "Always finish what you start, including little girls' bedrooms."